Virtual interviews are any job interview that occur between an employer and an applicant on an online format using technology that includes a video camera and a microphone. This can be most commonly using Zoom or Skype, and the questions are usually is the same as any other interview. However, given what's going on in the world today, just about every employer is using virtual interviews to meet their employment needs. In fact, Business Insights had done a survey of employers and found that 86% of them are using virtual interviewing to fill their current positions. HireVue is an AI platform that many employers are using, and there are other platforms out there that will use an interface online to prompt interviewees with questions and then record their responses. And this can be not just what they say, but how they say it as well, the words they use, their facial expressions, their body language. And employers that have used these systems have indicated that it saves time, saves money, and also can reduce bias in the hiring process. Virtual interviewing obviously is an important topic, and I was very excited to have the opportunity recently to talk with Tristan Layfield, who is a career coach and an expert in these matters. So let's take a look. With us today, I'm really happy to have the opportunity to introduce Tristan Layfield. So Tristan, why don't you take a second and introduce who you are and what you're all about?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me first off. But as you said, my name is Tristan Layfield. I'm the owner and head career coach of Layfield Resume Consulting. And really what I do is I help job seekers identify and leverage their value to obtain the careers that they want. So I've had the opportunity to work with over 400 clients in my 3 years of being here, and we've landed some pretty major job opportunities at, Fortune 500s and even small independent companies. So, yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. So we're talking about virtual interviews today. And so what advice do you have for someone who just landed an interview with their top target employer, but now they have to get ready for that virtual interview?
Yeah. So the first thing is research, right? That doesn't change whether you're actually interviewing in person or virtually or over the phone. You always want to do your research on the company or organization that you're interviewing with so you can really figure out how to tailor your answers and make sure that, they're sort of specific to the company. That's really what's going to give you the edge over the competition that you may have. Now, when it comes to specifically virtual interviews, the first thing I always tell people is test your technology, right? So we don't want to get on there and, the audio's not working, your video's not good, your internet quality is terrible, right? But then think about the small things too, right? So if you're going on Zoom, look at what name is popping up for you, right? It could be a family member's name, a nickname of yours, any of that. So make sure that it's your actual name, right? So test the full depth of your technology first. The second thing I would say is make sure you set the scene and limit distractions. Right. So you really want to be mindful of what's in the background, right? You see, I don't really have a lot of craziness going on. You want to be very mindful of that.
Yeah.
Because it could be very distracting. The other thing is I know a lot of us are working at home with pets and kids and, even significant others that are loud, whatever that may be. So, finding the right area in your home to also get some peace and quiet, not just for the other person on the line, but also for you. So you're not distracted when you're trying to answer those questions because interviewing is already stressful enough. We don't need it with 3 kids running in screaming, Daddy, I need a sandwich, right? So you need to be very mindful of that. And then the rest of it is really just the same with interviewing. It's really practicing, not memorizing, right? And then I think the biggest thing is just realizing what your body language is on the camera. If you can't tell already, you've seen my hands pop up quite a bit. I'm a talker. I speak with my hands. But that also comes across on camera as being personable, right? So just, what I tell people is maybe do some mock interviews over Zoom or Skype or whatever it is with, a friend, a colleague, or, maybe it's career services at the school, whoever it is, to help you prepare to get a little bit more comfortable with that and figure out how you're actually presenting on camera, because that's really key.
So some research, some forethought, some planning, and a little setting the stage.
Yeah,
I like that.
absolutely.
Great. Now, what are the
the common pitfalls of virtual interviews, and how can we best manage those?
Yeah, so I think the biggest pitfall that many job seekers have when it comes to virtual interviewing is that they're not getting the physical cues of
Hmm.
if they're coming off correctly, right? So we'll oftentimes focus so much on the interviewer, like are they nodding their head? Are they giving me affirmations? What does their body language look like, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that happens for us because when we're in interviews, we're sort of able to pick up on that body language. Am I telling the right story? Am I hitting the right points? Maybe I'm
Hmm.
a little off, right? But when we're doing it virtually, it's a little difficult. So what I tell people is the way to really avoid that is to come prepared, right? There are standard interview questions that we know we're going to be asked for the most part, right? We know, tell me about yourself.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
know that typically a lot of interviews are behavioral based. So, being very comfortable with examples from your past and using those STAR methods, situation, task, action, results. Yeah.
Hmm.
Using the PARK method, which is problem, action, reason, and knowledge.
Hmm.
So just really making sure that you're prepared to answer those questions because then you're less likely to be looking for reassurance from the person on the camera and you'll feel more
Hmm.
confident in what you're actually saying and delivering there.
Right, right. A little bit of practice, a little bit of research makes every question seem like an underhand pitch rather than a major league curveball.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other major pitfall that I find that a lot of people do when they have virtual interviews is they fail to follow up
Hmm.
after the virtual interview. Right.
Okay.
I'm a big believer that you follow up after every interaction. So, but when we don't do it in person, sometimes that can slip our minds. And I think it's really key. They might have had a day full of virtual interviewing. You could have been their second person. And by the time they got done with number 6, they don't even remember what's going on.
Hmm.
Right. So, that follow-up is something that can help bring you back top of mind.
I know some virtual interviews are happening now via AI, where you're not actually
Yes.
talking to a person.
Mhm.
How would you follow up with an interviewer if you don't really have that personal contact?
Yeah. So it may not actually be the interviewer that you follow up at that point in time. What I would
Hmm.
do is I'd follow up with the person who coordinated that with you.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So to let them know, hey, I've been able to complete the interview sequence or whatever it is.
Hmm.
And, I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to speak with me. If you have any other additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right. So, it's a very similar follow-up strategy, but it's not going to be with the person you actually talk to because you're talking to a computer.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. So going away
But some
from
people,
yeah, go ahead.
oh no, by all means.
All right. So stepping away from the future tech of AI, a little old school. What about telephones? How does virtual interviewing differ from telephone interviewing?
Yeah, I think a lot of us have a ton of telephone experience, right? We've all utilized phones quite a bit. So I think we
Hmm.
feel very comfortable having conversations on those.
Hmm.
Most of us, unless we are really big into social media or really big into keeping up with family via video, we don't do a lot of interacting on video. So it can get
Hmm.
really uncomfortable. Like some of the things that we talked about before, right? Long pauses, silences, body language, all those things are now back into play where they're not actually fully into play on the phone, right? You don't
Hmm.
care about somebody's body language on the phone. You listen to the tone, right? And so there's a lot less factors when it comes to that phone conversation than in the virtual space, right? When you're actually in front of a camera. So
Hmm.
it's once again goes back to those same tips of being very mindful of the technology, right? I know that people can hear me a little bit better when I have this microphone sitting here. So I got that up,
Hmm.
right? No employer is going to fault you for having something that's going to help you communicate better with them,
Right.
right?
Right.
So yeah, I think that's really the difference there is that there's a lot more factors inside of the actual virtual interviewing than phone interviewing
Okay.
because you're really just focused on a voice at that point in time and you're a lot more comfortable having the conversation that way.
Hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Mhm.
Anything we missed?
Let's see. The only other thing you brought up the really good point of AI interviewing, where you sort of have a prompt, right?
Hmm.
And you have to respond to that prompt. And most times they actually don't even give you more than one opportunity to do so. So a lot of people have issues with that because you're not talking to someone, even on video. So what I've actually suggested a lot of people do when you enter those type of interviews
Hmm.
is if you can find the hiring manager or whomever or the recruiter and maybe print out their picture and put it behind your camera so you're actually looking at something, feel like you're speaking to a person.
I
It's a
like that.
tactic that I've found has worked really well. It makes you feel a little bit more comfortable than just speaking to the green or red dot on your camera screen. So
Yeah, yeah, that's a
um,
great tip.
yeah. So I found it to be pretty useful. And then obviously all the other ones help you prepare for that too. The more prepared you feel, the easier that one take is going to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Really appreciate your expertise on this, Tristan Layfield. Great stuff.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Awesome.
Once again, I wanted to thank Tristan Layfield for agreeing to participate today and for his insights on virtual interviewing. In the description of the video, I will have a link to Tristan's website as well as to an article from Harvard Business School on virtual interviewing that he recommended and that I found to be fantastic. At Career Services, we are here to help you, and no matter where you are in your job search, please feel free to reach out to us at all the contact information on the screen, and we will be happy to set up whatever services you need, especially these days, a mock virtual interview if you want to try this stuff out. Okay, thanks for your time and for watching. Take care and be safe.